Thank you again for coming today and joining us for today's conversation. Again, my name is Megan Hennis. I'm the Visitor Services and Membership Coordinator here at the National Buffalo Museum. And today we're going to be discussing the effect of the current pandemic on bison ranching and production. So without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Ilana to get started.
Thank you, Megan. Welcome to our first Bison After Breakfast program. We're glad to have you all here. I see some familiar faces as I scroll through. Judd, Susan, Dave, hi, Danny, hi. I'm not going to look again because I'll probably lose my place in my little script here, but I want to welcome you all again. We're really glad to have you here. My name is Ilana Xinos. I'm the Executive Director for the National Buffalo Museum. If you don't know, the museum is a nonprofit founded in 1991. Our mission is to advocate for the restoration of the North American bison through education and outreach. Also, like probably a lot of you guys, due to COVID, you're experiencing some changes. The changes at the museum is that we're currently closed to the public. We're thrilled, though, to be able to connect with you here. We're trying to make some lemonade out of lemons and try to do some new things to engage the public. The temporary closure does mean that our revenue stream is pretty minimal right now. So if you are able to support us financially through either a donation or through buying something from our online store, you can find links to do that in the chat thread. All right, thanks a lot. I want to introduce you to our staff once again. You met Megan Hennis, our Visitor Services and Membership Coordinator. We also have here Rachel Johnson. She's our Curator of Collections, and she's going to be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So she'll be popping in here now and then saying so-and-so has a question if we don't address it. Now I get the pleasure of introducing our three panelists. Kevin Leier and his family own and operate Heartland Bison Ranch in Rugby, North Dakota. And Kevin is also the Executive Director for the North Dakota Buffalo Association. Kevin, why don't you give him a wave? And then we have Jim Wells, President and CEO of North American Bison. North American Bison LLC is a marketing, sales, and processing arm for independent bison ranchers. And we're also excited to have Jim Matheson here, Assistant Director for the National Bison Association. Guys, we're really glad to have you here virtually today. We're going to be talking about something that's pretty much at the top of everyone's minds right now, which is the current pandemic of COVID-19. It's affecting most people in some way, and we want to hear about how the pandemic and the economic changes have impacted your organization and the bison industry as a whole. And before we get going, I think this is really important. We today will use the term bison industry to describe all of the people and activities involved in production and marketing of bison, but the National Bison Association prefers the term bison business over industry. And I wanted Jim Matheson to say a couple words about why that is, because I think it makes a really important point. Jim?
Sure. Thank you, Ilana, and hello, everybody. Good morning. Yeah, so the bison industry is used loosely through the business. I would say a majority of us do not use the word industry, largely due to our size, our mission, really. So, you know, to put things into perspective, we processed about 60,000 head of bison in the U.S. last year, and that's a good year for us. You compare that with the beef industry. Beef processes approximately 120,000 animals per day in the U.S. So in theory, by lunchtime on the first day of the year, you know, the beef plant would be done with processing bison for the entire year. So we are niche, very much a niche product. Our board of directors and our community and our association members have decided long ago that we never want to be a commodity, and that's a long answer in itself, but primarily bison were never domesticated, and our ranchers utilize those instincts today to raise a very natural product in bison meat. So we never want to commoditize this animal. And the other piece is that we're still restoring the species to its native landscape here in North America. So a big part of restoration has to do with all of our ranchers and farmers raising this animal today. So for all these reasons, we consider ourselves a business for sure, but not so much an industry, if that makes sense.
All right, thanks. Great. So our first question, just to get us started, is what are the major sectors of the bison industry? Can you describe them each and then maybe say a bit about how each of these sectors feel the impact of COVID-19? And Kevin, I guess I wanted you to start on that one.
Yeah, well, again, good morning and thanks for inviting me to be on. This is a great idea. So excited to be here. I think maybe where we just start is, who is the guy or gal who is raising that animal? And it's a perfect time of the year because all those little red fluff balls are starting to drop onto the ground on these ranches. So you start with kind of what we'd say is a cow-calf operation, right? So would probably be sector number one, is you're looking at an operation that's designated its land to raise animals that are breeding stock. So they're of mature breeding age that are going to be able to produce a calf. And so that's the cow-calf. From there, those calves are going to probably eventually end up in a situation where they're either being designated as potential replacements to continue to build the overall breeding population of bison, or they're going to be designated as animals that are set up for the meat market. And so, kind of eaters or feeders is kind of how you could look at that, right? And so with that, there's kind of two different avenues. They would be, put out onto pasture and grazed, or some guys will supplement them with a feed source to be able to help them kind of get through that growing years till they can get to the rail and be processed. So that would be kind of a finisher or a feeder. And there's different ways that you can look at that process. That'd be another category. So cow-calf to a finish to a feeder. And then once those animals are to what we consider market weight, then they would go to a place like Jim Wells there in New Rockford with the North American Bison, or a number of other facilities, and they would be processed for consumption. And yeah, Jim, I'd let you kind of take the marketer spot on that one, I guess.
Yeah, so we, again, thank you very much for having me on, and hello to everyone out there. And I look forward to continuing to have dialogue with the National Buffalo Museum in this Bison After Breakfast. This is good. I like it. So the marketers and processors, what we serve is, in essence, the arm or the avenue for ranchers to bring their animals in for harvest and processing, with the intent being it serves as a source to move product into the general marketplace for consumption. So we bring the animals in, we process them, we custom fabricate the bison meat into various types of packages, some for retail, some for restaurants or food service and industrial food service applications, and then some for other larger general marketers in the marketplace. And then we get behind and market to the general public, whether that be through social media or local markets, or potentially ads in local grocery market areas. And of course, supporting our restaurant folks with menu pop-outs or chalkboards when you walk into a restaurant, that type of stuff. So that's what we do from the marketer. So we serve as the processing, the marketing, and the sales arm for getting bison out into the marketplace. That's what we do.
Do you guys want to address now maybe a little bit about how each of the sectors has been impacted by COVID?
If I could start, I'd like
Awesome.
to take the run on that.
Great.
The biggest impact right now, is on our food service sector, which is that sector that most people are familiar with from a restaurant, from restaurants, or whether that be a chain restaurant or a local mom and pop, an independent restaurant. But also in there are what we call industrial food service operators. So that could be like hospitals, those types of environments, or kitchens, hotels, those types of things. And the reason they've been impacted, of course, is the lack of people getting out and congregating and communing. And it's really a very difficult situation, not only for those waiters and staff that work in those places, but those groups and those owners who run those facilities. So the largest impact is on that side of the business. And how that impacts the bison industry is when we harvest animals, we make product for retail and we make product for food service. And the food service sector is primarily, as you might imagine, what you see in restaurants are steaks. So you might see a ribeye steak, a tenderloin steak, or a New York strip steak, or other nice cuts of bison. Whereas in addition to, you do see bison burgers as well, but primarily on the retail side. So that's the grocery stores or the mass merchandisers and specialty segment retailers. Pretty much what you see in those stores is ground product in the form of like a 1 pound brick of ground bison. You might see some patties of bison as well in retail. So there's one sort of SKU that dominates the retail side, and that is the ground meat. And good, bad, or indifferent, it's the least expensive, and it is the least profitable for the bison industry, which translates into impacting everyone, not just the market or producers, but the ranchers themselves, because you know, we're all part of the same story, and that is about trying to support the industry, grow the industry, and make it a viable business, just like what Jim Matheson said. So that's how we're impacted the most right now.
Right. So, I mean, is it safe or fair to say that, like, if a finisher has produced animals that might be turned into steaks, that now their value is diminished because they might now need ground?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair statement to say.
Okay.
Yeah, that is definitely a fair statement.
Just trying to figure it out for like a lay person, you know?
Yeah, and we obviously, and I would, you know, I would message this out, and hopefully everyone's in the spirit of positive energy. We all want to see this pass. We all want to see our food service brothers and sisters get back to work, and with that, engage in procuring and buying bison again. And we all know the reality is it won't be at the same rate or levels initially as it was, say, prior to February 29th. But with the promise of it coming back, that allows us to balance the equation and therefore minimize impact on ranchers, minimize impact on producers and marketers across the board, and also consumers when it comes to the price of goods, whether it be from a restaurant or from a grocery store.
Right, right. So I think you might have touched on this already, and I don't know, Jim Matheson or Kevin, do you want to add anything before I move on?
Yeah, Ilana, I would add, Jim is absolutely right, and this is impacting everybody across the board, all sectors of the bison business. You know, one other big sector, a lot of our folks, being so small, are farm direct marketers. They raise their animals, they sell direct to the public. Those folks are being impacted in a variety of ways currently. Obviously, those folks that were supplying local restaurants, et cetera, are being impacted. They're having to change their entire business plan to retail to the public. And we've had some really good success stories in our business of folks that primarily support food service that have transitioned very quickly to a direct sale to the public outfit very successfully. A lot of our direct marketers are seeing spikes in their sales currently. However, you know, things like agritourism, tourism is a big piece of the bison puzzle. A lot of our folks offer tours, particularly in the spring and summer, as these calves are dropping. It's a great time to be out there, as close as you can be realistically to a calf. But those folks can't give tours right now, obviously. A lot of our folks have Airbnbs, places to stay on the ranch. Those folks are being impacted, obviously. You know, and direct sales off the ranch too. They can't do that any longer, at least for the time being. Farmers markets are largely shuttered. But again, I think we're all being resourceful and creative in how we can solve this for the time being through these online sales and that sort of thing. Online farmers markets. I talked to someone yesterday who's had very good success in Indiana, actually, with their farmers market switching to an online format, and they are staying very busy. But everybody's impacted. I just wanted to touch on the farm direct folks, which is a big part of our business.
Yeah, that's an oversight on my part there. I had that written down. But I guess one thing I wanted to say that just sort of struck me is that the thing about bison that I have come to realize is that eating bison, being around bison in general becomes an experience. And I think part of that experience is eating. Part of that experience is, like you guys said, the calving season, being around them, being inspired by them. And, you know, our mission here is to support bison restoration through education and outreach. And I think one of the important points that we need to get at today is, in order to keep the numbers of bison growing, in order to, you know, keep the population growing, we really do need to eat them. So eating is part of that experience. So, you know, I mean, just to put that out there, is as much as we want to be around them and see them and see how they're amazing, it's the whole cycle, it's the whole life cycle of it that is part of the business.
That's right, Ilana, and I'll just touch on that. You know, we have used that slogan, "Eat them to save them," which may come across as crude initially, but if you look at the big picture, what our farmers and ranchers are doing with bison is providing the economic incentive to allow the restoration of the species to happen on their private property. And our job at the National Bison Association is to educate these folks, offer them the market to provide this wonderful product, very naturally raised, and educate people how to raise this animal properly in a very holistic and sustainable manner.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think that that I've learned through the last 5 years of being here, that when you meet a rancher or a producer, there is economic viability to the job that they have chose, but they also love and are really passionate about the animal itself. And I think that is something very unique that I have learned about this business, and it's not hard to fall in love with the animal. Kevin, you want to add anything, or do you want me to move on? Or
Ilana,
Yeah.
I actually have something to pop in with.
Great.
Jason Miskin is on the line with us, and he had a comment he wanted to add about new methods of marketing the meat. Is there space here to let Cecil in for a sec?
Sure. Hi, Cecil.
Am I in? This is all new to me.
You're in.
Cool. And apologize for not being here on time. Hello, everybody. But Dick Gehring and I were actually on the phone talking about a marketing program we're putting together with Dick. And it's trying to reach consumers over the internet or social media in ways that may have only been attempted in smaller fashion before. So I think that there is a lot of room here to start moving more meat through consumers who want it, who aren't close to it, who aren't close to a ranch where they can buy a quarter or a half, an eighth. And that's what we're going to try to do. So again, Dick's got good animals, and we've got some pretty broad marketing contacts of people that like bison. So it still all comes back into, you've got this chain, you got to have them raised, you got to have them on the ground, you got to have them ready to go. And then when they're ready to go, they need to go. So that's the part we're going to try to help add to. Now, we're not, I mean, we're neophytes in that side of it, but I think there's some, the more folks that get out there and try that in various aspects, the more people we're going to reach. That's all I really had to say at this point. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for popping in. I think we're pretty much getting to the next question that I have on my list. And I don't know if we want to say, I don't know what else we're going to say about it, but I'm going to ask Jim Matheson to launch in. So what sets the bison industry apart from other meat production, both before the onset of the pandemic and during it? So anything you might not have said about that before.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, like I said before, we are a little bit different in how we raise livestock and the reasons that we do so. The product itself is all quite different. I think in terms of how this is impacting us versus other sectors of livestock, I think it's mostly a numbers game, numbers issue. We, like I mentioned, are much smaller than most other sectors in American livestock. And as such, we fortunately have not been impacted terribly as other sectors like beef have, like pork have, in which entire plants are being shut down. You know, we do have limited processing facilities for bison across the United States, and it's typically a good distance from producer to processor in some instances, depending where you are in the country. However, due to that base, the fact that we're spread out, the fact that our animals are processed in much smaller plants than the commodities are, obviously transmission of COVID has been less so than the bigger plants. We have had some plants with employees contracting the virus, but not to the point that they've had to close. They're all scrambling, trying to, one, keep up with demand, two, keep up with a labor force that can get the job done, and three, an entirely new market for a lot of our folks out there. So there's plenty of challenges. However, I think due to our small size, and more so the people involved in this business are making it work.
Awesome, thanks. Jim Wells, do you want to follow up? Do you have anything to add?
No, I think Jim hit it right on the head. I think from where I sit, very specifically, when you look at these other plants, the size of them, and I'll just use our facility as an example. You know, in the plant in South Dakota, you have 3,600 people in a plant. Well, that doesn't even, I mean, that's the whole population of New Rockford and Carrington combined, right? And so at our facility where we have, you know, 50 to 60 plus employees, it's real important that we work with those employees and just stress self-care, not only at work, but away from work as well. And I think that the remote location is helped a lot. But I think it's communicating, talking, just keeping them aware has also helped. And quite frankly, I think everybody is struggling with this. It's the emotional side of that, not getting out, not interacting, not doing the things you normally had done to release or let go of energy or whatever. We're all struggling from that, everyone. And so it's making sure everybody understands you're not alone. And I think that that's helped a lot too. So that's it.
Great. Thanks. You know, I'm sure our viewers have heard already about the outbreak of COVID at that pork packing plant in South Dakota. And you're getting to it earlier in what you were saying. So Jim, maybe you could talk a little bit about the difficulties inherent with social distancing in the facility that you're in. Yep. And when you're performing an essential service, how you're handling the outbreak in terms of that, if you can, if there's extra precautions put in place, or just let us talk to us a little about that.
I'll kind of bullet point it to give, but we immediately, when this started happening, we immediately started putting in place new processes. We had to think differently. So the very first thing we did was eliminated non-workers from entering the plant. And you know, typically we would have ranchers or truckers or people passing by, you know, whatever, but we said, you know, we just can't have them coming into the facility with not knowing their history, where they've been, what have you. That was immediate. Then we started having employees wear safety masks, and there's also face guards that attach to your helmets, your hard hat helmets, safety gloves, all those things. But probably I would tell you the few things that we're doing that are really, I think, have really helped. And this is, you know, when you take a step back and look at everything that you're doing, what's really helped is every morning our plant leadership are there to meet and greet the people. We are taking the temperatures of every single employee, and we're meeting with them and just having if you will, just imagine a talk, a dialogue, just making sure, are you okay? Is everything okay at home? That type of discussion. And it humanizes everyone, right? Because if you think about your normal day, a lot of times you go to work, you may engage with one or two people, and that's about it. And you kind of just try to get through the day. But what this has done is really made everybody realize that person you're working with or next to, or who's in a different location in the facility or whatever, we're all tied together in this. and we all need to care about one another, not only at work, but away from work as well. So we're taking the temperatures of every employee, and we've made sure everybody understands if someone sees something that is common sense that, you know, you shouldn't be doing, because we all by nature have habits that we've done that when you think about it, like putting your hands to your face, right? I mean, gosh, just, I can't tell you the number of times a day I sit there and hesitate, right? But if we see an employee who's not engaging in good practice, then it's okay for someone else to say something. Don't feel bad about it, because you're really trying to protect and take care of everybody when you're, because sometimes people do things unconsciously. They just aren't aware of it.
Touching your face.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we found, and this is what's really cool about it specifically in our environment, is everyone's okay with that. There's nobody, it's not like you're tattling on me or you're making me look bad or you're making me feel that everybody understands it's all about improving how we work, how we care and are safe. And the reality is, at least in our facility and with our people, is we are making them understand what they're doing is critical. It's essential, not just to them and that local community of New Rockford and Carrington in that general area, but we're supplying bison and finished product across the United States, Canada, and into Europe and other places. We're having an impact and a positive impact, and that is all about you, the individual. And so you showing up to work every day, giving your best every day, and letting those little things go that you might ordinarily have gotten a little edgy about, but we're all in it together. And so again, a lot of safety measures, but for me personally, my hat's off to my leadership team, Mike Jacobson, Rod Swart, and Adam Progeba over there, in how they are interacting with every single individual employee on a daily basis, making them realize they're important. So that's what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, I do know that, I mean, in any job, like right now, we're all we all have stress from this. I mean, as I'm sitting here, I have my daughter here, she's 8. I know Jim probably has kids at home, and it's going, shh, shh, you know, but I like the fact of that positive sort of self-monitoring. And I think that, you know, humanizing it, and I mean, this is an issue that is affecting us all on a daily basis. Personally, we've brought our personal lives, our work lives, into our personal lives in an odd way. And so I think bringing that back into the plant or the facility is kind of neat. So thank you for that. The next thing, or I don't know, I don't want to go on if there's any questions, or if Jim or Kevin have something to add at all. No? Okay. All right. I'm going to go on, and I'm going to call on Jim Matheson. So Jim, the media has reported that a live animal market was likely the initial source for the outbreak. Is there a concern about the transmission of the virus between animals and humans? Like, just talk to us, help us with that.
Sure. Yeah. There's not. The short answer is no. There is not an issue. As of today, there's no evidence that COVID is being transmitted from animals to humans. I believe it's 3 cats and 2 dogs have tested positive. But I looked on the AVMA website, the American Veterinary Medical Association website this morning, and today there's no evidence that this can be transmitted from humans. So, no.
Awesome. Thanks for, I figured it would be a quick clarification, but there are people who think about that, don't know, and just would like that element of security.
Sure. No, we've gotten the question as well.
Yeah. So I'll just move quickly on from that. There's one last question, and I'm pretty sure you might each have an anecdote for this, but right now that we're talking about, there is an era of social distancing, but we've also seen a lot on social media and other places about coming together, community support, supporting each other. So there's been a lot of community outreach at this time, and I'm just wondering, within the bison industry, have you guys felt the effects of community outreach? Have you implemented community outreach. Any stories you want to share about that? Jim Wells, I'm going to start with you because I think there is one.
I will start. So, we as a business, we were dialed in. We've implemented new processes, safety, all these things. You get so focused on just making sure you're protecting one another. So along the way, during all this, as people started getting laid off and jobs were tightening and people were having to take care of their kids from home, they weren't at school and those types of things, we got calls. We got several calls, of which a few of those we felt like it was important that we step up and help our neighbors. One of those was the Edie County Food Bank had called. They were running low on supplies and food. And then the other was the local school district in the area with wanting to find a way to serve meals or hot meals and continue that process with the students, and then the Devil's Lake Food Bank as well. So I got with our CFO, Tim Lundstrom, and our VP of Operations, Mike Jacobson. We looked at what we're doing on a production basis on a week to week, and then made a determination that there was some product that we could then donate over a period of several weeks, rather than just doing one donation, try to do a multiple period of time donation. So we've incorporated donations to these outlets to help offset their struggles of trying to just have food to provide to people who have no other source or no other way to get help and get food. And and I, on a personal side of it, I mentioned to Mike that he should mention to the team if there's anyone who could help in the distribution of that at these locations. It would be great from the standpoint of just the labor. Think about the additional labor that it takes to do these handouts and things at these facilities. And so, it's on a Saturday, and specifically in our case, it was 22 degrees or something, and we've had 15 to 18 employees show up at these places and their spouses to help hands and feet processing and handing out of food. And I just couldn't be more proud.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I read an article about that, so.
Good.
Ilana, I would add, well, first, we want to commend North American Bison for doing that community outreach. That's wonderful. And we're seeing other plants as well, and marketers doing that as well as incentivizing their employees having to work extra hours and longer hours these days. They're providing complimentary meat to their employees and staying them fed and healthy and all that good stuff. For us, we are still figuring it out, to be honest, this new community building, virtual community building, I call it. We had to cancel our summer conference this summer, initially scheduled for late June up in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It's not going to happen. So we are trying to expand our virtual community. We're trying to do a virtual learning seminar in place of summer conference. It'll likely happen around June 22nd or 23rd, likely be a one-day streaming presentation series similar to this, filled with speakers presenting on topics pertinent to all aspects of the bison business. The other thing we're doing is trying to provide new market outlets and retail outlets for our members who are unable to sell physically, as I mentioned earlier there. So fortunately, this past year, we were able to develop a new app for consumers called BUYSOME app. That's BUYSOME, like BUYSOME, Bison. And
you guys put that in the chat for people.
Google and Apple devices, Android and Apple devices can utilize it. And it's a location-based app that essentially works off of our online buyer's guide on our website, which is bisoncentral.com. And on the buyer's guide, you can enter anything from a state to a name to people that offer halves of bison, half carcasses for sale, that sort of thing, direct marketing. And it all feeds off the website onto the app. So based on your location, you can simply pull up the app and show folks how they can pull up the map and find local bison to you. So what I can do is show you real quick on my phone here, just so you have an idea of what it looks like here. So you can see. Anyway, it's very easy to search. You can search the entire map. You can drill down very easily. So in that regard, we're trying to build our virtual community and get bison meat out to more people, as well as other products and byproducts.
Awesome. Kevin, I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't have anything to say. I was going to just mention one anecdotal thing, and it's just, I've seen on social media, like there was, when this first hit, I think there was a real, like, there were producers who have, I don't know, were cut short, like they didn't have their accounts, they're losing all their accounts, and someone put something on social media and like immediately like sold, like, you know, the post goes viral, it's like, help, you know, I don't have anywhere to sell my meat, and then people were looking for meat. So, and that might have been just a one-time thing, but I think social media has probably helped with, like, people want to know where their meat's coming from, and they're connecting more with their local community. So maybe that's a good one for you, Kevin, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question and great points. I think about that all the time as a producer. You know, one of the things I think is a great strength of the bison industry is it's the size. It's a small business, right? Quit saying industry. It's a small business, and I think what that does for consumers is it gives you a very manageable avenue to be able to know where it's coming from. You know, I mean, we'll have people who will stop on our ranch and they'll tell us, oh, we've had this brand of bison meat. Oh, yep, that's us. You know, we're a part of that brand, and these are the animals right here that are going to go there. And there's you see a level of ownership from the consumer to that, then saying, I know where my money is going, and there's a lot of pride in that, I think, as a consumer. And I think if there's a silver lining in this whole situation and a positive thing to take away from it, I think there's a substantial number of people who are starting to look at how the impact of their dollar really makes a difference in a local community. Yeah. And they're saying, you know, I might be able to get it for $2 cheaper here, but I have no idea where it's come from. But by putting my money here, like on a ranch or at a small producer retail outlet or something that has local ties, they know those dollars are going. You know, like when somebody buys bison meat from me, they know that some of that money is getting returned to the dance classes that my daughters are involved with in our local community.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really beautiful thing, and there's a lot of power there. And again, I think it's a silver lining in what we're dealing with, because people are really starting to drill down and see where their dollars can make a substantial difference. And likewise, you know, we're from a small community here in North Dakota, and I think one of the things that I've noticed very, very clearly is just the support that we give year round, regardless of a pandemic, right? Nobody tells you to plan for a pandemic, but no. It's this the support we try to do year round, and you see how vital that support has become. You know, for bison being kind of a novelty item, even in our area, we'll do meat bundles to donate to our Pierce County Fair auction, right? So those are funds that go to help supply money that's needed to be able to put on our county fair for our 4-H kids to show their animals and to have something to do. Well, we're not maybe going to have a fair this year, but they still need the money to be able to get through another year of operating, and you see that impact. Or another one that we're very close to our heart is hospice care, and we have a board and a fundraising program in our community that goes to raise dollars for hospice, and we're always, you know, we're always supporting that with something that's different that they come to expect. Like, I know we're going to be able to bid on but that money goes locally to take care of elderly people right there in their homes for quality of end of life. So I think if you really step aside and all of agriculture, I think, is really like this, but if you really get to know the people who are producing on the ground level that are tied to the animal and to the land, you'll see that there's an immense amount of pride in what goes into what we try to do. And I think there's a little bit of it's a little bit of a sweet feeling now, seeing people come back to those farms or ranches and really appreciate just how central this food supply system is and what we're trying to do to keep it going. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's all too just part of that experience that we talked about earlier. I mean, it is a cycle. I mean, just like we talked about the cycle of the bison, I mean, this whole thing is like, you know, where does this come from? How are we helping? And I think now being helpful to others is becoming more powerful and meaningful. One thing I think we might have skipped over, and I maybe get back to it a second, is I wanted to ask Jim Wells about, or to explain a little bit about USDA inspection as it relates to bison meat, because not everybody knows this. Not everybody knows, you know, how meat is inspected and why and when and who foots the bill or whatever. So Jim, if you want to just take that for a sec.
Yeah, so the bison industry is basically, there's USDA, which has an army of inspectors, and in the bison industry, it's a voluntary program, and so you could have intermittent USDA inspections or periodic, but for us specific, and I'll speak to our facility specifically, we actually pay for a USDA officer to be housed and at our facility every day, all day long, every day we produce, as a part of our safety program. We also are GFSI SQF certified, which those are just fancy words for saying that we have inspectors that come on, that are part of a national program to ensure safety, and they monitor and make sure that we are practicing and meeting the minimum guidelines, which are very high and very strict for our full operations, all the way from receiving animals to the processing of those animals to the packaging of that, and then the shipping of that. And so again, at least within our environment, as it's tied to the USDA, we felt like rather than have an intermittent USDA situation for inspection, that it was worth the spend to assure the consumers, the moms, the dads, the families that buy bison meat, that we have put in place to ensure what I call trustability. I know it's a made up word for me, but I just want to make sure that when consumers see our bison that we process and package, that it's very visibly obvious that this is a well done, very beautiful piece of meat, and it's something that I know just by looking at it, it's good quality. And then when they eat it or try it, of course, it delivers. And in most cases, and I'm talking about even with current people who are quote unquote in the business of buying or trading with us, who may not have had bison, when they try it, they're just blown away by how good the quality is. So the USDA, the whole safety aspect is huge in the bison industry, and we're here to promote it and make sure that we set a standard for it, and hope that along the way everyone else in the industry not only appreciates it, but is doing their part to make sure bison is safe all the way to the consumer's plate. That's
awesome.
What we're doing.
And thank you. And like, I know bison's really healthy, but I want maybe Jim Matheson to hit on a point that we haven't talked about, which is hormones. You know, the use of use or not use, like what makes bison so healthy, what makes it a good choice to eat, and what are some of the things that NBA members sort of agree to do?
Sure. So to answer your question about growth hormones, essentially growth hormones are prohibited by law to be used in bison, and that equates to there are no growth hormone products on the market applicable to bison. So we raise these animals without growth hormones. They grow quite fast on their own, as our members and our friends on the panel here would attest to. So essentially, you know, as I was mentioning before, how we try to utilize the instincts of the bison, which is not domesticated, we try to utilize that to our advantage. Among those is the lack of marbling we find in bison meat. Bison do not marble like cattle do, so obviously there's a lot less fat in the meat than a beef carcass, for example. You know, and those types of things are all attributing to what a great healthy piece of meat we can provide. You know, the other piece with growth hormones is that since we do not administer growth hormones, we don't need the antibiotics as well to treat the animal. We don't castrate our animals. We don't brand our animals. We don't dehorn our animals. All of these management practices of industrial agriculture utilizes that we do not is all to, one, the humane treatment of the animal as we are stewards of it, and two, the end product, which does result in a healthier piece of meat.
I was trying to get to my unmute. Thank you. That's awesome. As I think of things that I hear you guys talk about a lot, I want to make sure that people who don't get to hear you guys talk all the time hear the cool things you have to say. So we are at about 10:50 now, so we're about to end the hour. I want to know, Jim, if you have any final thoughts, maybe a minute or so, anything you want to say. Jim Wells. Too many Jims.
No, well, first, I want to reiterate, thank you so much for having me on and putting this together and taking the leadership as we continue to try as an industry to broadcast about bison. I want to thank Kevin and Jim also for joining me. It's been fantastic. I thought we did pretty well considering we have probably never had a chance to do this before. But I would just, my words out there is, let's continue to be true and be who we are. We are bison and not be something that we're not. And I think that if we all march to that message, as Ilana alluded to, as everyone on this planet has had to do is reevaluate where your priorities are, I think we're going to see bison elevate in the priorities of those people, not only who have maybe tried it periodically, but I'm telling you, we have entered households where we've never been before. And I think those people are going to find out that, boy, this is something I want to be a part of because it's good. It's good for the earth. It's good for the world. And, oh, by the way, it happens to be
delicious,
a very healthy alternative to the other things I'm bringing into my home. So let's all do it together and broadcast and help each other, social marketing, whatever it takes to get the word about bison out there, and know that we here at North American Bison are here to manufacture and produce and package that product and get it out there for people to buy as efficiently as we can. So that's about it. And thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. And Kevin, how about you? You got some last words?
Yeah, I would, again, reiterate everything Jim said in terms of, putting this together. Thank you so much for the invite to be a part of it. And, I'd be a little hesitant to speak on behalf of all bison producers, but I do think,
go.
Yeah, well, I think integrity is the big thing. When you meet somebody who raises bison, you're going to meet somebody who has a very high integrity, because I think the animal itself, and this might sound romantic in a sense, but I do think that the animal holds the producer to a high level of integrity, because that animal, it's a majestic animal to raise. And we take a lot of pride in that. And I think industry-wide, we take a lot of pride in that. And so I would encourage people who are watching this, who are new to this whole conversation, just because you're not a bison producer or you have maybe nothing to do with the bison industry doesn't mean you can't be involved and get to know the people who are actually behind the scenes doing all the work. And it is an awesome industry to be involved with. And whether it's at the National Bison Association or maybe just within your state, there's an association, feel free to reach out, because we're all about trying to educate and include people into this awesome business that we're a part of.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And, at the National Buffalo Museum, and I know the NBA would have resources for anybody who's interested in knowing if there's an association near them or if there's a bison ranch and what they do. If you're coming through Jamestown, North Dakota ever, we'd love to have you at the museum. I will talk your ear off for as long as it takes to get you to now love this animal. It won't take very long. Funnily, I just made a word too, Jim. Funnily enough, it'll take not long at all. You will love the animal. One quick note is that we talked about how fast they grow, and we're into calving now. And I think, what is it, from 40 pounds at birth? When do they hit about 500 pounds, Kevin?
Probably right around November.
Yeah, right?
Right.
And they're standing up in 10 minutes and walking in about an hour or so, maybe sooner. So just a little tidbits to get you guys interested if you're not already hooked. And then I'm going to give it to Jim Matheson. Can you say some final words and maybe then talk about any other consumer resources available on bisoncentral.com?
Absolutely. I'll start with the consumer piece. Yes, our website, again, bisoncentral.com, is loaded with recipes for bison specifically. We've got cooking videos. I think there's 4 or 5 cooking videos on our website to learn how to cook different cuts of bison meat, professionally filmed at a local culinary school here in Colorado. Please utilize these resources we've made available to the public as we continue to elevate bison as well as the app, like I said, Bison. Find some local bison, like Kevin said and Jim said, support your local ranchers, your local processors. That money will trickle down in that community for years to come. We are all about supporting our members, local agriculture, all that good stuff, and we have the resources on our website to help you with that. In terms of closing, yeah, I just want to share thanks along with the other guys to the museum. Thank you for putting this together. You guys are brave. We've all been talking about doing this. You're the first to do so. And I think you did a very good job. Thanks to my fellow panelists here. You guys did a fantastic job as always. Yeah, you know, I think I'm optimistic as well. And I talk to a lot of members from across the continent every day about their current situation. And not everybody has a real optimistic story to tell right now. But I think looking at the big picture of our business, we should be optimistic. I think, as Kevin said, people are learning about the integrity of the people that produce this food. The fact that bison is uniquely 100% North American, raised, processed, sold all by Canadians and Americans primarily. You know, this is a uniquely American product that does not need country of label origin to know that this was raised here in North America. I would also add that, you know, we foresee growth in our sector, but know that we're not aiming to replace beef or any other commodity. As I said, we don't want to become a commodity. We want to raise and restore the species in a responsible manner that produces a premium product, which is exactly what we're doing right now. Finally, I saw in the chat that, and I wanted to mention this, Cecil, again, is promoting the program that his family put together. A couple businesses, the Buffalo Wool Company and Cecil's Buffalo Gold Premium Fiber Company, they're offering free bison books right now on Cecil's website, which is buffalogold.net. You can order a book for your child, for yourself. I believe they just have to cover the shipping and educate our next generation about this wonderful species that we continue to restore. Along with that, Cecil is also doing a contest, a youth contest for bison. In the past at our NBA conferences, we've done photo contests, art contests, that type of thing. Cecil is offering this new contest in which we've got a youth art contest, a youth photo contest, and a youth story or article contest, all pertaining to bison. So we'll be promoting that ourselves at the NBA. Keep an eye out for that. But I think, you know, the fact that we're all so optimistic and giving in this community of ours, the bison community, provides me with a lot of hope.
Thank you. And oh my gosh, thank you for mentioning that, because it was on my list like 20 minutes ago and I totally spaced it.
Thank you.
Sorry, Cecil. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. This has really been a great conversation. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge today and your experience with us and our viewers. And to viewers, we appreciate you joining us in your interest in the topic. I'm thrilled to get people interested in learning anything about bison. And once again, I want to say, before I forget, my mind's going to kick in here with a thought. Cecil, I think they're giving away one of my favorite kids' books. I think one of them is called Camas and Sage, and it is so educational. We do sell it at the museum, but get it for free with Cecil. And so there's that. And then I know these times are tough right now, but if you do have any ability at all to pitch in and help us out with a donation or of any size to support us, you can go to our website. I think Rachel's going to make the link available again. And the purchases you make on our store are going to support the museum. That'll be in the chat also. If you'd like to keep up with what we're doing at the National Buffalo Museum, and I hope you do, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can also join our email list by going to www.buffalomuseum.com. And just to let you know, this event is going to be bi-weekly. We are super brave, not just a little brave. We're going to put it out there every other week. After you eat breakfast, grab a cup of coffee, come see us. Our next discussion is going to be May 7th, and this is one of my favorite topics, okay? COVID, I mean, although I think it's an important topic, I wouldn't say it's my favorite at all. But we're going to call the next discussion Bison Beyond Yellowstone, and I think it's important. One of my friends who's a producer has always said that People always think about Yellowstone, the Yellowstone herd, as this iconic herd when they think about bison, but people really don't know how few of the bison that are in the population today really live at Yellowstone. So it just encompasses a very small part of today's bison population. So we're going to be talking about all of the different types of bison herds in North America and how they're managed. So we'll be talking to a representative from a state park, and I know that speaker is going to be Donald Beard from Caprock Canyon State Park in Texas. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that we can get Bob Hamilton from the Tallgrass Prairie Nature Reserve as someone who represents the Nature Conservancy. I know we're going to have Jim's colleague, Dave Carter, the Executive Director of the National Bison Association. And I'm hoping that we're going to have wildlife biologists come from the Intertribal Buffalo Council here. If you think of topics that you think you'd like to hear about or what you'd like to learn more about, please email us. If you'd like to be, if you're in the industry and you're on here or the business and you think you want to talk and you have ideas and you want to be a panelist, that would be great. We would love that. So you can contact us through Facebook Messenger, or you can contact Rachel, our curator of collections, at collections@buffalomuseum.com, or you can give us a call, 701-252-8648. Again, thank you, everybody. I'm so thrilled. This has been great. And I guess we should sign off.